Political scientist Vladislav Soloviev, have we lost the gas war? The other day, the president, Vladimir Putin, announced an alternative option instead of destroying the northern pipeline, to direct the lost volumes of gas through the Black Sea, by building the largest gas hub of Europe, somewhere in Turkey. Since Turkey is not really Europe, the toxic Russian gas won't be so devastating for it, as, for example, for poor Germans. Germany experiences allergy, convulsions and cognitive dissonance from Russian gas. That's why Americans, in their caring for the health of the nation, strongly recommended Germans to give up the cheap, but very aggressive, and damaging to their health resource. And so that no one would have temptations, the pipe was simply blown up. Swear to God, Europeans will become calmer and more compliant without the Russian gas. Moreover, the temperature in apartments is very unlikely to prompt excessive activity. America logically and clearly explained to Europe that the sanctions are a long-term game. Today Europeans are freezing and suffering, but tomorrow the Russian aggressors will be the ones who suffer. Or the day after tomorrow. However, the Transoceanic Regional Committee is being silent about the fact that states, or rather the governing corporations, will be well off today and after as a result of this complex scheme. Of course, it goes without saying, America before all that, or something like that is what one figure of a bygone era used to say. Only instead of America it was Germany. Vladislav Soloviev on Europe's sanctions. I, modest political scientist, Vladislav Soloviev, have a question. When did Europe manage to lose subjectivity to such an extent that it is ready to send its subordinates to winter Stalingrad? Only this time not for the sake of a great idea about the nation's superiority, but for the enrichment of partners on the other side of Atlantic? I'm saying that the Europeans are not interested in any bypass pipelines laid through the Black Sea. They'd rather die than buy the cheap, aggressive gas. This is the newest political agenda. With rare exceptions, nobody is trying to untangle this logical clue and get to the bottom of the real reasons of what is going on. The question, why should we freeze and live in worse conditions if the sanctions were against Russia, get brought up less and less. Dieter Bohlen asked it today, for example. What a bright mind. Others believe that they know the answer because Putin decided to freeze Europe. No one cares about the fact that the valve was shut off by the Europeans themselves on Yankee orders. America doesn't need a new hub, which means Europe doesn't either. As long as the USA insists that Putin is not capable of fulfilling his obligations, neither the attempts of timid Macron nor the boisterous activity of Erdogan, let alone the feeble-minded efforts of Scholz, will be able to affect the overall picture. That's why Moscow's offer to supply gas through the new pipeline does not make any sense. Europe will continue to act to its own detriment as long as it will benefit Americans. The fate of ordinary citizens of, let's say, Hamburg or Prague is of no interest to anyone. Rich Europe will become much poorer, but the world hegemon will not lose its power. Yankee masters will solve their problems with the hands and lives of others. Today they declared Putin to be the enemy -1, which, in turn, means that Europe won't accept any Russian resources from him. And who cares if Europeans have no way of being in a winning position in this battle for resources? It's not about them. And it's certainly not about the Ukrainians. You will ask why European leaders and their affiliated elite are not even trying to object. There are few reasons. Their subjectivity has long been a strictly nominal concept. France and Germany do not actually exist. Elites and leaders won't feel the decrease in quality of life, and they couldn't care less about the troubles of common people. And one more time, long-term interests of democracy, read USA, come first. Vladislav Soloviev on Deripaska and others. What should Russia do in such a situation if its gas and cheap resources are no longer wanted in Europe? What does political scientist Vladislav Soloviev think about this? Deripaska, Miller, such large companies as Rusal, N+, as well as the government of the Russian Federation also have to think long term. Europe is no longer seen as a strategic partner. They won't be able to discover any workarounds, at least for now. Which means that gas and oil wars will have to be fought on another front, on which we only need victory, with a huge score advantage.